Hi, I'm Jo Clark, and thanks so much for joining me today. This is the Redefining Midlife podcast, a podcast designed for the 40-plus woman who is determined to challenge society's myths and beliefs around midlife. It's for the woman who is inspired and ready to define midlife her way. Join me each week as I chat to health and wellness experts for up-to-date information on how to live well as some special conversations with incredible everyday women redefining what midlife can look like. Here's to making our next half of life even better than the first. A very big welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions and how we can beat 5 of the most common pitfalls on reasons why they fail and turn that around so we can actually succeed and nail our goals. Let's think about why we actually make them. Now, we're getting to the end of the year. A lot of people are probably sick and tired of their jobs, sick and tired of the people who are around them. They're getting exhausted from all of the celebrations that happen at the end of the year. And they might be feeling like they're needing a big break. And with that big break that happens over that Christmas, New Year period, we're thinking about how we might like to feel and be. So it's a new year, new start, new you. And so we make these goals. Now, researchers have spent a lot of time looking at how and why people make New Year's resolutions, but more importantly, why they might fail. What are those common behaviours that people have? Because it's these common behaviours that will cause people to fail. So today we're going to take a really good look, a magnifying glass at these behaviours and what you can start to do to change those behaviours so you have that success, because that's what we all want. I think we've probably all experienced the failure, and you'll see why, that you're not going to be alone with some of the statistics that I'm going to be sharing with you very, very shortly. It's one of those things where you might be thinking a New Year's resolution, if you go back in your life and you're thinking about what you might have thought that you're going to do from your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and if you're in your 50s and 60s, thinking about the sorts of things that every new year is going to be a new start. Let's see what the statistics say and why you might fail. Now, researchers say that only 9% of people that make resolutions actually complete them. So you are in the vast majority if you have not succeeded in making your goals come to fruition. So that's a pretty huge failure rate. We've got 91% failure rate, which leaves a 9% success rate. Now, there's also more research that goes on to show that 23% of people actually quit their resolution by the end of the first week. So they don't even make the first 7 days, which is a bit sad. But 43% again be quitting by January. So that's nearly half. So nearly half have got these great ideas, and by the end of January, it's gone. It's disappeared. They're not great odds. So let's see if we can increase those odds for you. The 5 most common pitfalls are going to be what we're looking at today, and then we're going to counteract what sort of behaviours can you have to change those. So pitfall number 1, we're going to be talking about the unrealistic expectations that we set for ourselves. And this might be the really ambitious ones, the lofty ones. We make these grand statements and we have this great feeling. We say it, we state it, maybe not it to anybody else, but we might keep it in our head that this is how I'm going to be, this is how I'm going to act this year. So have a listen if these ring true to you. If you've said something like, I'm going to lose a heap of weight, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to go to bed early every night, I'm going to be less stressed, I'm going to exercise every day. They're really great in theory, but in practice, they're going to fail. So let's have a think about why. Why are these unrealistic? So if you say you're wanting to eat better, well, what does that actually mean? What does eating better look like for you? Have you really thought about it? Is it going to be eating better every meal or every second meal or maybe once a week? How is that going to look? And then think about, okay, you're going to lose a heap of weight. I'm going to lose weight this year. Well, that's great. That's awesome. But have you thought about how you're going to do it? And then you might say, well, I'm going to exercise every day. Really? Every day? Is that realistic though? What are you going to do when you're on holidays, when you're sick, when you've got people coming to stay? All right, I'm going to be less stressed. Again, that's great. We want to have less stress in our body for sure. But what is that going to look like in your current life? So that is a big pitfall. We're setting ourselves up to fail because our expectations are not realistic. That can give us that whole feeling of feeling frustrated with ourselves. And then we've got that evidence. If it doesn't work, like the 43% by the end of January, okay, you're still as stressed as ever. You're not moving like you said you would every day. And then you've got that absolute feeling of failure. And that gives you more evidence that you tell yourself that nothing ever works for you. But what we have to start thinking about is setting more realistic goals and achievable goals. So we're going to be talking a little bit later in the podcast about SMART goals. And SMART goals is absolutely something that I teach and I use myself. I have this in my Better Than Before membership for women. We have these goal planning sessions where we actually start to think about realistic goals, making a lofty goal more realistic and achievable. And there's also that opportunity that we have for each other for feedback and to make it simpler and succeed. So think about some goals that you have in your own life that you might make beginning of the year or that you may have made previously, and ask yourself, is it realistic? Can you actually do that? Now, the second pitfall we have, which is sort of coming in a little bit into this as well, is that lack of specifics. We're thinking about the details of the goal or resolution. So if it's, say, for example, be less stressed, how are you going to do that? So what sort of tools, what sort of techniques are you going to use to lessen the stresses? And if it's a goal like, well, I'm going to get fit, then what type of exercise are you going to do to get fit? When are you going to do it? How often is it going to happen? Then think about, well, do you need equipment? Do you need to pay anything like a gym membership? And then eat better. Do you need to get new recipes? Maybe you need a whole lot of new cookbooks. Maybe you need to meal plan in advance because eating better is hard when you come home tired and you just reach for whatever is in the fridge. If your goal is around sleeping better, then think of those specifics. What are you going to do to make sure that you nail sleeping better? Does it mean that you're not going to use your phone before bed? Does it mean that there's no TV in the bedroom? Does it mean that you're going to go to bed earlier? These are the sorts of things that you need to think about. So we have what we call SMART goals. SMART goals are a really well-researched and recognized way of writing and creating a goal. So every single letter in the word SMART stands for something. So the S in SMART stands for specific. The M stands for measurable. A stands for achievable. R stands for realistic. And T stands for timely. Now, this is what I wish I would have known years ago. And it's only in the last few years that I've actually used this framework to create my own goals. And I can tell you right now, they have been successful. So let's think about how we can use that SMART framework with some common goals that people might have. Now, we've talked about strength training before in the podcast with Professor Belinda Beck. So we know that strength training is super important for us. And maybe you've got a goal. All right, so next year, I'm going to add some strength training into my routine, my movement routine. So let's think of a SMART goal for that. So instead of saying, I'm going to start strength training, you might say something like, I will spend 30 minutes strength training every Tuesday and Friday morning before breakfast. Okay, so I'm specific. I can measure that, because I've got a time there as well. It's achievable. I'm not saying I'm going to do it every day or 3 days a week or 4 days a week. I'm saying I'm going to be doing it 2 days a week. I can fit that. I'm saying when it is. So it's telling me it's going to be before breakfast. Maybe you've got a goal about sleeping better. So your goal might be something like, I'm going to sleep better this year. And then you've left it at that. Let's make that a SMART goal. Your SMART goal might be, I'm going to go to bed before 9:30 p.m. every weeknight. So that's specific. I can measure that. It's achievable. It's realistic because I know that, I may not go to bed at that time on a weekend night. And it's also timely. I can have all of those aspects for that goal that's going to make it far more achievable for me. If you had a goal, for example, I want to reduce stress. Now, again, remember, that's fairly unrealistic and it's lacking the specifics. So let's make that a SMART goal. Your SMART goal might be, I'll listen to a guided meditation every night before I go to bed. And again, it's It's ticking all of those things that a SMART goal needs to be. It's specific. I can measure it. It's measurable. It's achievable for me because, and again, when we talk about achievable, think about your lifestyle, because my goals may not fit your lifestyle. It's also realistic and it's timely. So it ticks all of those boxes. Now, when we set our goals and our intentions or our resolutions for the beginning of the year, we have to keep, again, the first two that I've talked about, we need to make sure they're realistic expectations and they need to have specifics. They need the details. And again, that's something that we do in the Better Than Before membership that I have. The ladies there, they create SMART goals that suit their needs and their body requirements. So everybody's wellness recipe is going to look slightly different. So think about your own life. What are the areas that you need to work on, and create something specific for you that's going to be realistic. And it's also something that is great to share with somebody. We're going to be talking about that coming up as well. Having that detailed plan increases the chances of your success of your goal actually happening. Now, the third most common pitfall we have is a failure to plan. So our SMART goal looked at the specifics, it looked at the details, but then we've actually got a plan. We can't have it all sitting in our head, because that can get lost in the chaos of everything else that's called life. Things get busy. So we need to be able to hold ourselves accountable by actually creating a plan. Many people don't actually realize the significance of having a detailed plan to achieve resolutions and goals. So by taking that time to plan for a goal that's important to you is really important. It's not a waste of time, and it's actually going to increase your chances of success. But the thing is, most people go, oh, I don't have the time to do that. Well, actually, you do. You just need to sit down and do it. The old saying that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail is absolutely spot on. And we know that, again, because this is coming from research. It's a common behavior that people don't have. So that's why one of the reasons people will fail. And whole lack of planning can actually lead you to just that sense of procrastination. You're thinking about it, you're spinning your wheels and going around in circles. And it sometimes can actually derail, because you haven't planned for certain things. Then it means that if something comes up or something happens, you don't get back on as quickly as that you could have. You haven't thought in advance of what you could do. So we're going to be going into more specifics on how this can be counteracted. So you've got no roadmap to get where you want to be. Let's say you haven't planned at all. You're wandering around aimlessly. You stop and you give up, and then you've got the evidence in the story that you tell yourself, well, it's too hard. I can't do this. I'm going to be better organized next year. Next year is going to be the year I'm really going to nail this. So I'd often do that. If I think about myself, in all honesty, I'd often do that with exercise. And again, like following with all of the research and the statistics that we've got, I'd start off well. January, I'm nailing it. Really, really good. And then it'd drop off if there was an interruption. Let's say work got really busy. Beginning of the year, for example, for me, teaching, it was flat strap. You'd be going head down, bum up for weeks on end. So, the exercise would taper off to the point where it'd probably stop for quite some time. Maybe there was wet weather. I couldn't go for my walk. So, wet weather, it's wet today. Yeah, no, I won't do anything else. I won't have anything else planned. So what we do is what we need to think about the specifics of planning. For example, what we do in the Better Than Before membership as well is go through a complete planning process. And we did that just a couple of weeks ago for next year. This is something that you can do as well. We started off with a calendar to mark off all the important dates that we have for that year ahead. So think about birthdays, holidays, maybe public holidays, anything that you know is going to be really important for you. And from that, we then put that into a yearly plan overview. So we had a calendar, we highlighted those things, and then we had a yearly overview, a little space for every month where we wrote some of those things in. Then we included all the important health checks that we need to have as women in this stage of life, and we added those in. So that becomes a priority as well. So if you're really thinking about your health and wellness, make sure that you've got that list of things that you know that you should be having, all those health checks. And if you're not sure, send me a message and I can send you a list of all of the things that's recommended for women of our age. Then what we did in our planning session with the ladies in the membership is that we had a reflection of the past year. So we were really honest with ourselves and we thought about, well, what worked well and then what didn't work well, I should say. And we had a chat about that in our group. And then we started to think really closely and clearly about what were the wellness areas, or our wellness area, depending on what your lifestyle is going to let you do. What area did we want to focus on for the year ahead? And then what we did together was we set SMART goals for those areas. But then we didn't stop there. We set a SMART goal, but then the next part of our planning process actually gave us a step-by-step action guide to increase the likelihood of us succeeding. Because there's no use setting goals if we know we're going to fail. So we're planning to succeed. And that, again, is a mindset shift, particularly if you've set goals in the past and they haven't succeeded. So we're going to flip the switch in our brain to say, right, we're going to make this succeed and we're going to give it a red hot crack by doing all of the things that we know is going to increase the chances of it happening. So what we did is we looked at each of our goals. So all of the ladies looked at their goals, and in their action guide, the planning guide that we had, they talked about why the goal was important to them. So they had a chance to write that down, the true reason that they wanted to achieve the goal. And then from that, we had a look at how will they achieve it. So again, some planning time to write a detailed list of all of the things that they need to do to get it there. They broke down a larger goal into small, achievable steps. And can I say that again? They broke down the goal into small, achievable steps. And that's what a lot of people don't do. And again, I can have my teaching experience behind and say that's what we would do when we're teaching children big concepts. We've got the big overarching concept. We break it down into small bits so that they can reach that learning concept by the end of a set amount of time. So you've got to think about that for yourself. Have something large, break it into steps that work for you. And then we thought about, well, when is it going to be completed? How long might that take? Is it a whole year process, or is this a particular goal that I can nut out and nail within a couple of months? So they set a timeline or a realistic time frame. And then we did some great visioning. We're thinking about, well, what is success going to look like when we reach that goal? And this is really important. This is a missing piece that a lot of people don't even consider. These women wrote down what they would feel like and what success would look like after they completed their goal. So how would that make them feel? That's a really key part, because if you're setting a goal, you want to be able to feel a certain way when you've reached it. So what does that look like for you and your goal? It's a form of future visioning, because we can't be what we can't see. So if we can see ourselves achieving it, that starts to get our mind thinking about more carefully how we're going to get there. And then something that's really important that we don't often think about either is, how are you going to reward yourself once you've succeeded in reaching that goal? So was it a lot of work? It sounds like a lot, but no. Most of the ladies had this particular planning for their goals done in an hour. There was still some fine tuning that perhaps they've got another goal or two they wanted to do the same process with, but now that they've got that process, it makes it so much faster. It's not starting the year off winging it. You've got a hope and a wish that's going to happen. These women have got a well-planned and detailed roadmap of how they're going to reach each goal that was important to them, that's going to make a difference in how they feel and make a positive impact on their health now and into the future. So think about your goal. Can you do that with yours? It's not hard, but it does require a certain level of determination and commitment. So if you're wanting to succeed, these are the processes that you need to do to have it happen. Now, the fourth pitfall we have is that lack of accountability. And that's a big one. If you rely on just yourself to keep going, then it's very easy for that little voice, or like I sometimes say, that bitch on your shoulder, that will give you an excuse to give up or do something else. And I'm sure we've all had that good versus bad voice in our head at some point in time. Or maybe we have it regularly. The importance of accountability in the resolution process, it cannot be understated. And there is so much research around the importance of accountability and how that can lead to your success. Now, some of the reasons why accountability is key is that you increase your chance when you make others aware of your goal. Keeping it to yourself is something that you can easily say, well, I'm not going to do that. No one else knows, so I'll just keep it quiet to myself. And if I fail, well, it's okay. The big takeaway with this pitfall is to have a person or a group of people that can hold you accountable. That's the big takeaway. Have someone to hold you accountable. If it's one person, great. If it's more than one, then that's even better. When other people know about your goal, they can offer you encouragement. Sometimes you've got challenging times, so they can help you through with that. They're there to celebrate your successes as well. And they can provide constructive feedback if you've got a little bit of a problem as well. Now, having those regular check-ins with accountability partners or a community of people around you really helps you to notice your progress or your setbacks. And it helps you keep your focus, because it's so easy. If you've got a busy life, like most of us do, it's easy to lose that focus and attention. So that encourages that. It also encourages reflection. So not only where you are now, but how far that you have come. So you can see what's working, and then you can make adjustments if you need it. Also, including accountability into any resolutions or goals you make means that you share your experiences, your wins, your challenges with other people who might have goals that are similar to you. You're not alone in the journey, because sometimes it can feel like you're the only one. And so just knowing that others are facing similar struggles or celebrating similar wins can really help you. It helps you with your motivation, and it also gives you that great sense of community, that sense of connection and motivation to keep on going. It also helps you consistent in your efforts. Like when you know that you've got a support system that expects regular updates or progress reports, that helps you stay on track. Small steps and being consistent is key to making progress. So remember, you alone are ultimately responsible for doing this work. So you can't be upset with the results you didn't get with the work you didn't do. So that accountability will help you with that. And the reason why accountability works is because you've got that community. And that's also a reason why that's a part of, I've got that in my Better Than Before membership. So once a month, we all meet together, all the ladies meet together over Zoom. We share our progress with our goals that we've set. We've shared our wins, and we share our struggles. We know we're not alone. Shit happens in our life. There are great things that happen in our life too. So we're there to celebrate the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the women, they know they're there for each other. They aren't alone. And then hearing that somebody might be going through something similar to you is absolute gold, because that whole feeling of isolation, that nobody knows what I'm going through, oh, I can't do this and the goal's not working, that's not the case. Everyone's been in that position, but we're there to lift each other up and help each other progress and move on. This is really such an important and valuable part of the membership, and something that women love to have. So think about when you are creating your New Year's resolution or the goals that you've got for the year ahead, do you have that factor built in where you've got that accountability? And if you don't, what can you do to add that accountability into making your goal more successful? Now, the fifth pitfall, that's hard to say, fifth pitfall that we're going to look at today is having an all or nothing mindset. Now, mindset is incredibly important. That can be really detrimental. If you've got an all or nothing mentality to your resolution or goal, that's going to probably increase your chances of it failing. We've got to realize that interruptions in our life are really normal, and they can cause some setbacks for your goals, but they don't need to be a reason to give up. There's a concept that you might have heard before. It's called that whole progress over perfection. Nobody here is perfect. We are all imperfect beings, but what we need to do is just notice that we're imperfect beings, and still make that little bit of progress. Give ourselves that sense of grace that sometimes we're going to have to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and then just keep on going. And we mightn't make a giant stride forward for a little while, but if we can make those couple of little steps, tiny steps forward, that is progress. So setting yourself up to be perfect is going to set yourself up for failure. And that's why we work together to think about how we can break down a large goal into small, consistent habits. Many of them are daily. Maybe they only happen a couple of times a week, but whatever it is, we have got those small, consistent steps, and that is so important. So think about your goal that you're setting for yourself. Are you planning ahead for interruptions like holidays? Do you know what you're going to do during and after those times? That's super helpful. And then having those people around you to support you and remind you and hold you up after some more challenging times, after those times where you think, oh, I've just got to give up, is really important. So during the busy times or when your motivation dips, just know in advance, what are your minimum standards going to be? Okay, I know that I'm not going to be able to do everything, but what is the smallest step I can take forward that's going to get me to where I want to be? Standing still is not going to get you there. Moving forward will. So for example, if your goal was to exercise every day, but you had visitors, what are you going to decide in advance that you could do instead? Maybe your minimum could be a quick series of stretches or sit-ups. Doesn't have to be massive, but it's rather than doing nothing and saying, well, I can't do anything because I've got people staying. What is it that you can do? Not only are you making that small step forward, you're also giving yourself evidence that you can still do something that's hard. It's progress over perfection. Being prepared for those setbacks and having a positive or a flexible mindset is so important. So when I traveled overseas to France recently, I knew for 7 weeks, my usual eating habits are out the window. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to eat like I do at home. And why would I? I'm over in France, for God's sake. I want to be able to experience and enjoy the food that's on offer there. Everyone hears about how wonderful it is, but I wanted to be able to experience it. I knew I could come back to my wonderful whole food rich, protein rich, vegetable rich, all the colors of the rainbow rich type of a diet once I got back here. So rather than avoid eating and not enjoying the French food, I decided I was going to bloody well embrace it. I was going to enjoy those tastes. I was going to enjoy those experiences because I knew that as soon as I got back home, I was able to go back to my normal foods. That's progress over perfection. Also, with my normal movement routine, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do all of those things that I do at home once I got over to France. I knew I wouldn't be able to do my yoga. I knew I wouldn't be able to carry around all the sets of weights to do my strength training. But I knew that I'd be walking around a lot. And by God, we did. There were huge days where we did lots of steps, far more than I would here when I was at home. So there was still progress over perfection. So planning and deciding in advance will help you get flexible or help you to be flexible and get back on track with your goals. It's not all or nothing. So as we wrap up today's episode, I just want you to remember that resolutions and goals can be achieved when we avoid the pitfalls. And as Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. You can't unhear what I've just shared today, but it's up to you now to decide what you're going to do with that. So start thinking ahead for your 2024 goals or resolutions that you're going to make. Make sure you cover all of the elements that I covered today. So I'll go through those really quickly again. Make your goals realistic. Follow that SMART framework that I shared. Plan ahead. Start to think about what you're going to do. Break it down into small parts. Add all of those things that I suggested will really increase your chance of success. Add in that really big, important piece, that accountability, and also have a positive mindset. Don't have an all or nothing mindset. Have a positive mindset that you can start again, that there may be setbacks, but it can still happen. You don't have to have a setback. Stop your goal altogether. Maybe it all sounds a bit hard, a bit overwhelming. Maybe you'd like some extra support. Or maybe you're just really serious about your health and wellness and you want some extra accountability. Or maybe you're just really wanting to nail all this and fast track your health and wellness goals. If that's the case, I invite you to join my Better Than Before membership. Or perhaps you would like some personalized mentoring programs. Well, I also invite you to book a free 20-minute call with me to chat about options that are going to suit you. And you can find those links to the Better Than Before membership, as well as a free 20-minute booking call with me, in the show notes. But whatever your goal, whenever you start your goals or your resolutions, I just want to wish you all the very best and wish you every success in achieving those goals. So until next week, keep redefining your midlife. Thanks so much for listening and sharing your time with me today. I'd love you to hit subscribe on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app and leave a 5-star rating and review. To keep spreading these empowering messages, please share this podcast with other incredible midlife women in your world. Join me again next week for another redefining midlife conversation. Thanks again for tuning in.